Our next speaker is Patricia McDonough, and she has her PowerPoint up. You can see that she's going to be talking to us about a preliminary look at agent and patient marking in Thangal, which is also called Koirao. Go ahead, Tricia.
Thank you, Shobana, for the introduction. I am going to get my own stopwatch here going as well, so I can try to keep track of my time. But I'll be taking us through just a preliminary look at what will be part of a chapter of my dissertation, with the kind of looking at these nominal markers in Thangal. I'm a PhD candidate in the linguistics department at Indiana University, and I'd first like to just give a very little bit of background information about the Thangal language. So this is a language that's spoken by about 1,200 people in Manipur in northeast India. And it is a Tibeto-Burman language. The classification for it is a little fuzzy, but it seems to be some of its close relatives seem to be Maram, Liangmai, Rongmai. And I'll say here too that the speakers that I work with are multilingual. Many of them speak a number of the local languages, and then kind of use Maitai and Manipuri as a lingua franca as well. The community members of the Thangal tribe identify kind of socially as Nagas, and there's very little, very limited published work on the Thangal language. So the examples that I have here in the presentation are from my field work. Just to give a little bit of an overview of the kind of presentation itself, so I will give just a couple of quick notes about case marking, semantic role marking in Tibeto-Burman languages, and then I'll talk about the agent marker in Thangal, which is ni, and just kind of lay out the general uses of this ni marker, and then I'll do the same thing with the patient marker, which is ao. And then I'll talk a little bit about some of the complexities that have come up as I've started to look at these markers. So some places where they occur where they may not seem like they should be occurring, some quote unquote optional uses of these markers, and then with ni in particular, looking at this as maybe some potential areas where it's being used as more of a focus marker, and some of the factors that affect the usage of both of these markers. I'll give just a couple of closing thoughts and a couple of things that I hope to be able to look a little bit more at with regard to these markers in particular. So just a couple of kind of bullet points here on case / semantic role marking in Tibeto-Burman languages. So one of the big things here with this is that it's messy, and there's been a lot of work that's been done, especially within the past 10 or 15 years, that have people who have looked at these markers in Tibeto-Burman languages. And from these papers, there are some common factors that come up that seem to affect these markers and where they occur. So those include transitivity, animacy, volitionality, and aspect. So I will try to hit on these elements with regard to Thangal, as far as some possibilities for why the markers are occurring, maybe in various places. A couple of notes about this. So the first one that I want to kind of give here, a little disclaimer, is that it seems like with these nominal markers that the context is really important in trying to figure out what the marker means, gathering that semantic information. And so I've tried to get these contexts in my field work as I've been able to, and so I can try to kind of provide those if situations come up where people are interested in those. But it's difficult to kind of gather. And going hand in hand with this, the data collection method, especially for these kind of semantic role markers, seems to be really important. So this presentation is done largely based on data that I've elicited, and I'm very much aware that once I am able to really get into the texts that I have more, that probably some of these intricacies will come out as far as when and where these markers are showing up or not showing up, and then maybe things will also just end up being more complicated once I get into the texts. So taking a look at the agentive markers specifically, so this is the knee marker, and this is kind of in line with other agentive markers that show up in other Tibeto-Burman languages with some sort of that n and then a vowel. And so initially this marker does seem to appear to function like an ergative marker in that it marks agents in transitive constructions. So if we have an example like in 1 here, Moses kicked John. So Moses, we see, is getting marked with this knee agentive marker. Same thing with he ate the rice here. So pi, which marks the third person singular, takes that knee marker here. And a couple of additional examples of that. So the ugly black dog chases the cat. We've got a noun phrase here kind of forming this, this agent being marked at the end of that phrase with this knee marker. And then one that's in the future as well. So these 2 naughty girls will break the plate. We see that these 2 naughty girls is marked with that agentive marker as well. We also see the agentive marker coming up with non-living agents. So if we have a sentence like the car hit the boy, the car can get marked with the agentive marker here. Same thing with the water has carried away the man, so the water can get marked as well. And then even in a sentence like the truth will set you free, where we have a non-moving agent, we can still, something a little bit more abstract here, but we can still get that agentive marker in this case. So continuing kind of along with what might be expected in seeing this marking an agent, we generally do not see ni being used with subjects of intransitive verbs. So again, this kind of matches up with the ergativity expectations. So in the 2 examples in 8, trying to get something like paini kapange for he cried with that agent marker is judged to be ungrammatical. Same thing with I walked, it's ungrammatical with that ni marker. So both of these, the translation at least is without any sort of marker there, just pai kapange or hai tate. And then with this one, Moses is in Mumbai. We have Moses there completely unmarked. So looking at the patient marker, ow, this generally marks animate objects, I'll call them patients, intransitive constructions. So if we go back to our earlier example of Moses kicked John, and we focus on John now as the recipient of the kicking, I guess, we have John being marked with this ow patient marker. And if we look at the sentence here, this child pushed the cow. So we have the cow, again, the final marker here being the patient marker on cow. So we're seeing this patient marker with both people and animals here. And then she will carry the child on her back. So we've got something in the future here, getting the child gets marked with the patient marker as well. So all of these are, in all of these cases, the patient marker is at least possible. I'll talk a little bit more about situations where it's not necessarily obligatory. I've got a ditransitive example here too. So it's possible to see owl marking two different things in the sentence. This sentence here, I will make John give mom the money. So we've got this causative kind of suffix here, and we get both John and mom receiving what I'm calling a patient marker in both of these cases. So I would like to talk here about animacy with regard to patient marking. So one of the things that I want to note is that the ow is not obligatory if the patient is non-living. So in this example here, this child pushed the cart. So earlier we had the example of this child pushed the cow, and we had the cow being marked with that ow marker. Here for cart, we do not see that owl marker there. So we just get this garichi vehicle, and then a demonstrative there without the patient marker. Same thing for she will carry the basket on her back. So if she's carrying a basket instead of a child, then basket, we get basket the, but we don't have a patient marker here, kind of by default, it seems. Okay, so this is where some of the complexities start to emerge. So the first one of these that I want to bring up is transitive agents that don't have the knee marker on them. So the knee marker seems to be preferred in cases where there is an explicit patient marker, but it's still not obligatory. So if we look at these examples here, he scolded me and she hit the dog. Both of these, we see the agent here taking the agentive marker, but this is not the only possible construction for these sentences. So it is possible to, instead of having an agent, the agentive marker here for these, to instead have either a focus marker or a distal demonstrative. So Paini Hayao Sagaye is grammatical for he scolded me. We can also have Paiba Hayao Sagaye with the focus marker there instead of the agentive marker. And so figuring out exactly what the meaning is here, kind of gets more into the context and the semantics of that. But what I want to point out with this example and then with the following one here, so Paini Tiaochi Pite, for she hit the dog. Instead of Paini, we could also have Paichi Tiaochi Pite. So what I want to point out with this is that maybe it's not necessarily that these agents have to have an agentive marker. Maybe they just are strongly preferred, at least with some sort of marker coming between them and the patient. So this is kind of out there as a possibility. Maybe it's not necessarily just the agentive marker that's important here. Okay, so I would like to show then here too some cases where we have objects that do not have the patient marker, and the subjects, the agents, don't have any sort of agent marker either. So this example here for she boils potatoes, we don't have an agentive marker on this subject here, and we don't have the patient marker. Potato, of course, being a non like living non-human thing. We see that similar situation with Ranula is eating rice, so neither Ranula nor rice is marked. And then this one here for I have brushed my teeth, we don't get any sort of marking here for either the agent or the object. So one of the interesting things about number 20 here is that it seems like trying to have that agentive marker after the agent is actually quite awkward, if just not flat out ungrammatical. So one of the questions that I think this kind of brings up is whether this is related to the routine verbs that are presented in Celia 2009. So this is work that's done with Maitai, and as I said, Maitai is spoken by all of the Thangal community members as well. So there might be something with these particular types of verbs that is allowing just that complete dropping of the knee marker in these cases. We also, though, even have some cases where we do have a marked patient and we have knee that can be dropped. So in the sentences here, 21 and 22, so I met him and he knows my father. In both of these cases, we have the kind of patient here being marked with this owl patient marker, him and my father, but we don't have any sort of marking at all for the subject, the agent here. There's no agentive marker. So these particular cases are interesting because they introduce kind of this use of this optional knee. So for both of these sentences, it's possible to have knee after the agents, but it's not obligatory. And in fact, in these cases, when knee does occur, there's a different meaning to the sentence. So
we have about 4 minutes remaining, just so you know.
Thank you. So if we take a look at these two examples here, adding that knee marker takes the sentence from I met him to I was the one who met him, and takes the second sentence here from he knows my father to he is the one who knows my father. So it seems like there's some sort of maybe focus marker that this is bringing into play here. And with this example in 25, we get this even a little bit more explicitly. So this is the example with I brushed my teeth, and the way to kind of make this work at all with knee seems to be if we are contrasting what that subject is doing with what another subject is doing. So while she was singing, I brushed my teeth. We get that knee marker there for the agent only in this context where we've got two subjects kind of contrasting. It's also possible to have knee with intransitive subjects, but again, only in a very specific context. And that is, again, this context where we have one subject contrasting with another subject. So we can have a sentence that's like Cami ni taonge, meaning Cami went, but this is grammatical only in the context of somebody else was supposed to go and Cami went instead of that other person. So we could either have within the sentence, Renula was asked to go, but Cami went instead, or this Cami went instead might be uttered in the context of the speaker and listener knowing that somebody else was supposed to go. And I just want to kind of reiterate here that knee does not seem to have this contrastive focus all the time. So in one of the first example that I had here about Moses kicking John, it does not seem to be the case that this sentence is saying Moses kicked John as opposed to somebody else kicking John. So in this case, that knee just seems to be marking the agent. In a case like this one, I was the one who met him. It does seem to have some sort of contrastive focus there. So one of the things that this brings up is the question of whether this is one marker that's kind of serving two different functions, or whether this is, there are possibly homophonous markers here, which is also, kind of proposed in Celia 2009 with regard to Maitai.
About 2 more minutes.
Thank you. Another possibility that I'll throw out here with this is the possibility of the transitivity of the verb being a factor here. So maybe because kicking is something that's more transitive, then meeting someone, maybe that plays a role in how the ni is used in these cases. A couple more just interesting little observations and pieces of information here. So we have this ni marker possibly being used to show an agent that's becoming more active, or this might be with regard to the verb being able to take on a ni marker if the depending on what the verb is. So this sentence here, we believe in God. We don't have that ni marker there. But if we have something like we have believed in God, which is kind of the literal translation here for like we have accepted Christ, we have believed in God, then we do see that agent, that subject being marked as an agent with that agentive marker. This also could be due to kind of that we get this perfective aspect marker in here as well. So that might be playing a role here. And I have a little bit more here that I can share on possible aspect effects of ni. So we've got some verbs that use ni in this kind of what I'm calling this kind of default aspect, but don't allow it in the progressive. So it's obligatory in this aspect, and it's not allowed in this aspect with the progressive marker. We've got cases where the ni marker is used in this kind of default aspect, but used in this progressive aspect only with the contrastive focus. So he built a house versus he is the one who is building a house. That's what that meaning is going to be if ni is used in the progressive with the verb for build. And we've got kind of a third category of verbs that use the ni in this kind of default aspect and also strongly prefer it in the progressive as well. So something like he scolded me and she hit the dog. Both of those verbs in particular seem to very much prefer having that ni marker in the progressive aspect as well. So this kind of brings up possibly the role of effectual classes. So building and cutting something down, maybe if we're looking at accomplishments versus these activities here, maybe that's playing a role in this. And then also potentially the animacy, so cutting down a tree or building a house, we've got an object there that's less animate than a person or a dog in these situations. So there's a lot of factors to kind of work through. And I'll just wrap this up by saying that I'm hoping to continue to make use of this Thangal data to hopefully be able to contribute to just this ongoing discussion about case marking and semantic role marking in Tibeto-Burman languages more widely. I've tried to point out some of the potential effects of transitivity, animacy, agency, lexical aspect, and grammatical aspect as possible factors at play here. And I've got a couple of future directions that I'm happy to talk about as well. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tricia, for that paper on Thangal case. And I want to just open it up to questions. If people have any questions, then you can raise your hand or just jump right in.
Can I ask a question?
Please do.
I'm Murakami from Kyoto University, and I'm researching on the language of Manipur as well. And it is very interesting that the demonstrative chi comes after the patient marker. Oh, is it? Yeah. In Thangal, it is like the other way around. The Thangal has demonstrative chi as well. I think this is cognate with this Thangal chi. But in Thangal, the case marker comes after the demonstrative chi.
Yeah, that's actually something that I've been really interested in, and
Yeah.
we see, because there actually seem to be some of these, maybe we can call them these circumnominal constructions. Let me see if I can find one. I don't know if I have one in here or not. I thought I did. Where we have a demonstrative, some sort of demonstrative marker both before and after the noun. And I don't know if I have one in here. But you'll get something like, yeah, I don't think I do.
Like something like,
Oh, here we go. This child pushed the cart. So yeah, we get this like proximal demonstrative both before and after the noun, and there seem to be just different complexity, like different uses for, okay, in some context I can say he now, ni, I might be able to say he now, ni, gari, she, blah, blah, blah. In some cases I can drop the second demonstrative. In some cases I can drop the first demonstrative. And so that's definitely something that I'm interested in figuring out with regard to other languages too, and how those demonstratives are working.
And can I ask one more thing about the focus marker ba?
Yeah.
You mentioned ba. I think this is cognate with tanku ver, V-A. It is written as V-A, ver, it's pronounced.
Ba in Tangkul, you said?
Ver.
Okay.
V and schwa. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think in this va and in Tangkul, va is used for like focusing, especially for translating the passive sentence in English.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, and you have you tried like giving passive sentence for translating into Thangal?
I know I've tried some. I don't know if that ba marker is occurring, the ba marker in Thangal, if that's occurring
Yeah.
in the passive sentences. It seems it seems like it does occur, like specifically to contrast I did something versus somebody else did something. And then I have questions that come up about when ba is used for that contrastive focus versus when ni might be used for that contrastive focus. So that's also left to explore. But yeah, I'm glad that you said that about the focus marker in Tangkul, because that's something that I can kind of compare this with and see if I can see any similarities there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
nice to see somebody else working in money for in the session. So one thing that you, I think, did not mention, I'm wondering about it, is the use of these case markers for disambiguation. You did talk about if you have two things that are animate, then there's a preference to have both of them marked, I think, or if the agent is marked. So what about native speakers? Have they ever said anything about disambiguation? Like, no, we have to have this marked, otherwise we're not going to know which was the agent, which was the patient. Did they ever say anything like that, or?
So let me think here for a second. If we have a situation where we have two animate I don't know, beings involved in the sentence, I mean, I certainly think that in those cases the markers are used to help identify who's doing what. It still seems like the default word order comes in there and plays a pretty big role too. So in cases where that word order is changed and you've got the patient first, I think you're probably going to be more likely to have kind of those like markers as more obligatory. So if we have something like Moses kicked John, Moses and John both seem like they're going to be marked, and whatever that's because of the transitivity or because of like the disambiguation, I'm not sure exactly what's driving the fact that those would both be marked, but I think that they would be.
Yeah, it's a hard one to quantify. I think Chris Donnelly wrote a paper on, I forget what language does he work on? Somebody might remember, but Chris had written a paper on that. The disambiguation seemed to be one of the main roles for when that marking did occur.
Okay.
But I also feel like there may be more going on than that. You know, it may be the reason that speakers give when you say like, why do you use it? Why don't you use it here? What I think what I noticed is that rather than the case markers, anything else that showed the pragmatic force of that NP would do just as well. Like an article, like a demonstrative, focus.
Yeah.
They were equally happy with that, and it's like, okay, got it. I know who was doing the action.
Yeah, and it seems like in cases where I didn't get into this here, but in cases with the patient, even if you have an animate patient, if it's a patient that's marked with a demonstrative, like in the case of like the woman carried the child, if you have that chi marker there, marking then you don't need to have the patient marker at all. So if you have something like, she carried her, then you need to have that patient marker there. But if you have a patient that is a phrase and you have the demonstrative, then even if it's an animate, like a human patient, you don't need to have that owl marker. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Patricia, you've got an interesting problem ahead of you to work on. And it definitely will be a contribution to our understanding of differential marking in the region. And thank you all for being here. We are going to, am I missing anybody's question? Let me just make sure. Just speak up right now. Okay.
Just one comment. I just recommend to have you ever seen the book titled "The Case for Case in Manipuri," written by Sarat Chandra Singh?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it's written in Roman alphabet in Manipuri, and you can show the book to the native speaker and ask them to like try to translate into their language, and you see this like agent marking patterns very well. I tried that in Thangal, yeah.
And this is by Singh. Who is this by?
Sarat Chandra Singh.
Okay.
Yeah, if you don't have the book, yeah, you can contact me and I'll send you the PDF. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I would love to have a copy as well, Tricia. So if you get a copy of that, I'd like to see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Thank you all so much. And we are going to take a break now and then reconvene in room 1